Guru Shaksha Paraparam Tajmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yana Bhutare Swayam Rupa Karamayam Darati Soparantikam Mukam Kavi Bakariyan Shaparishmarane Bhangagyan Langa Dere Kadare Gere Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Dev Maheshwara Guru Shaksha Paraparam Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Dere Kadare Gere Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Dev Maheshwara Guru Dev Maheshwara Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Dere Kadare Gere Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Dev Maheshwara Guru Dev Maheshwara. All right, I think you'll find that'll be less distracting. Narayanam namaskritam naram chaiva narottamam devim sarasatim vyasam tato jyotirayat nashtapriyasho badvesu nityam bhagata sevaya bhagavati uttamashuki bhaktir bhavati naistiki nigamakaparu garitam param shukamakaram itadravya samitam pibata bhagatam rashamarya mahora horisikabugaram Krishna sadham upagale dhammagane karonashtadi shamasha parana kodhanodiham Tamapyada Vishuddha Vishuddham Vibhusam Apyana Viram Viraksanam Prakai Dharmanam Sankleshanavanam Santi Nanyataham Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutare Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitya Namane Namaste Sarasati Devi Gurabani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyabari Praskita Desatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sri Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Pranams. Welcome to Motivational Monday. Jean, Brent, Terry, John, Chris. Good morning, Chris, bro, my man. And bye, Bobby. Rob momentarily expected to pop on here on Zoom. Just want to share with you that we don't have a Sunday program at Salt Lake City. We found that people are more likely to come on Saturday night. And so the Sunday program, the Sunday Love Feast in Salt Lake City is held on Saturday nights at 7 o'clock. There's some things that happened before that. There's a Bhagavatam class, some kirtan, but the official program for the public, first time comers, seeker-friendly program, from 7 to about 8:30, including prasadam. So we had 135 people at the program last Saturday. The speaker was Pradyumna Narayan, otherwise known as Prashant Saraswati, who's an assistant professor at University of Utah. And so we're really happy about the great attendance. There have been a lot of people coming for the last couple of months, at least 85, sometimes 100, but 135 is a new benchmark for us in Salt Lake City. So we're excited. We're also gearing up for the Festival of Colors, which is just 6 weeks away, maybe 5.5 weeks away, March 25th and 26th. You can get tickets online, Festival of Colors USA. If you want to volunteer, let us know also, because we need about 100 volunteers for that event as well. We are revisiting pastimes of Ambarish Maharaj for, I think, about the 13th sequential segment here. Savai Mana Krishna Paradavina Vasamshi Vaikuna Guranam Savo Kuru Mandira Mandiram Katatu Chakata Sakatu. Maharaj Ambarish stands out as someone who used all of his faculties, his words, his mind, his legs, his arms, his intellect, whatever had been given to him by the Lord, he used that all in the service of the Lord. And when he was unfairly accused by an uninvited guest named Durvasa Muni of breaching the etiquette, the protocol for receiving a guest, and Durvasa Muni threw a fire weapon at Maharaj Ambarish to kill him. First of all, Durvasa misinterpreted. Ambarish did not offend Durvasa. Factually speaking, he only imagined that there was an offense. He over-exaggerated. He blew it up. He blew nothing. He blew something in. First of all, he took something from nothing, and then he took that something and he blew it up. He misjudged Ambarish altogether as an ordinary man and accused him of breaking his fast before having taken care of Durvasa Muni, the uninvited guest. Now, if you are here for the whole series and you go back to the first or second We talked about the various segments of society who represent God. The mother represents God because she gives nourishment, she gives character, she gives language. The father represents God, and they should be treated as God in this world because the father gives support. He provides, pays the mortgage, puts food on the table. The guru, because the guru provides your connection with God. And the atiti, the uninvited guest, atiti deva bhava. There are a lot of protocols in place in Vedic culture for dropping whatever you do and giving a proper reception to an uninvited guest, because you never know when that uninvited guest might not be God himself come to test you. Maharaj Ambarish had been observing a fast for 1 year. He was coming to that point in time where the fast was to be completed. It's pointed out that you don't actually break a fast. Every morning we sit down to our first meal of the day. We call it break fast because it's been 12 hours or so since we've eaten last, and we're sitting down to the first meal of the day, and we call it break fast. And what Maharaj Ambarish was doing was not breaking his fast, but he was completing his vow. The word is prahan. Prahan does not mean break. Break means do something wrong or you interrupt something. The time for the prahan, the completion of the vow, which was that he would fast for 1 whole year, is coming up. And it's calculated right down literally to the second. Maharaj Ambarish had gone 3 days before the completion of his vow, not the breaking of his fast, but the completion of his vow to fast. He'd gone 3 days before to Vrindavan, the holy place where Krishna performed his pastimes, to Madhavan, about the 12th forest of Vrindavan. He went to Madhavan forest, and he gave liberally in charity food to the Brahmins. It is said that being king of the entire earth planet, Maharaj Ambarish gave in charity millions and millions of cows to the Brahmins. And all of this was leading up to the moment when he would complete his fast by taking a little bit of food. It was counting down. The countdown was 24 minutes. When lo and behold, Maharaj Ambarish had done everything for 365 days of the year. The grand culmination was giving lavishly in charity to the Brahmins and to the needy people, clothes, jewels, food, cows. It's coming down to the last 24 minutes. He'd done all this for others. He'd fasted for this, honoring the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he'd taken care of all the parts and parcels of the Lord who were under his charge as the king. Now he was going to do one little thing for himself, which was to take a little bit of food after 1 year of fasting. What should happen? But that Durvasa Muni arrived on the scene. Who is Durvasa Muni? He's a portion of an incarnation of Lord Shiva. He's known as the greatest yogi, all kinds of mystic powers. He's easily angered, extremely irascible, unreasonably demanding. This man arrived just 24 minutes before Ambarish was to complete his fast. So Ambarish touched his feet. He gave him welcoming words. He offered him a sitting place. He said, take your meal. Durvasa said, first I'm going to go to the Yamuna River and say Gayatri. Fair enough. Durvasa left the palace. Ambarish is waiting. Now we've all had the experience of calling the telephone company, the power company. Right now I'm told that in order to get our permit for the Festival of Colors, I'm told by the county sheriff that I have to reach out to the Utah Highway Patrol and see if they have any suggestions how to improve our organization of the festivals. We'll just try. I invite you to try and get a hold of the Utah Highway Patrol. That's just a lot of fun. You're held on wait for an interminable period of time, and finally the connection's broken. You can email them. but by their own admission, they don't monitor. They have a public site where you can email them with any concern or any issue. They don't monitor that. When I finally got an answer after 4 days, they said, we don't actually monitor that. We've all had that experience. Please hold till the next available operator is there to assist you. You hold and you hold and you hold and you hold and you hold. Ambarish Maharaj was waiting for Devasa to come back, waiting for him 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 to come back, waiting for him. Time is getting shorter and shorter and shorter. Now, one interesting fact, the name Devasa. What does the name Devasa mean? Vasa means clothes, and Dur means dirty. Durvasa, like Duryodhan. Duryodhan. Dan means fight, and Dur means bad, So Duryodhan means one who doesn't fight fairly, who fights badly, who's underhanded and tricky, conniving. Durvasa means one who has bad clothes. Now, Durvasa actually wore no clothes. He was like a Naga Baba. It is said that wherever he went, he was clothed in the 10 directions. That's a euphemism for communicating that he didn't wear anything except his birthday suit. He was clothed in thin air. But nobody wanted to point out to him or describe him as being naked because everybody was terrified of Durvasa Muni. If you offended him even slightly, or even if you appeared to offend him, if he thought that you were offending him, even if you were not offending him, he could totally fly off the handle, curse you, curse your descendants, curse your ancestors. So people gave him this name, Durvasa, one who has dirty clothes or bad clothes. Actually, he had no clothes, but no one dared to point that out to him because he had everyone intimidated. So he failed to return in time. The time arrived, the moment arrived when Ambarish was to have broken his fast. Now, throughout the scriptures, throughout the Srimad Bhagavatam, the beautiful stories of the interaction between the Lord and the devotees often get backed into a tight corner. They're often placed, as it were, on the horns of a dilemma. Arjuna weighed the two options: to fight, kill my relatives, enjoy a kingdom which is won at the cost of their blood, or not to fight, be called a coward, incur ignominy, and step aside in order to let the bad guys spread their evil influence all over the earth. Neither option looked very good. When it seems like you're darned if you do and you're darned if you don't, when it doesn't seem to be any way out, it looks impossible. What devotees do, Kesham evanu kampartam ahamaganam nishyamyam jnana. They go within. When they don't see the solution in their mind's eye, and the advice that they're getting from their peers, their contemporaries, and the saints and sages just some or other doesn't sit 100% right. What they do is they recognize that Krishna, or God, the all-knowing, all-powerful Lord, is seated in the heart as the Paramatma of all living beings. So they turn their focus within and they ask Krishna, Krishna, what's the answer here? What would you want me to do? We remember also in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, the incidents where Ashwatthama had killed the teenage sons of Draupadi, slaughtered them while they were sleeping. Ashwatthama was apprehended, dragged before Draupadi by Arjuna and Bhima. And Arjuna asked Draupadi, should I kill him? Draupadi said, no, I'm full of grief at the death of my teenage sons, and I don't want his mother to feel that grief. Sahadeva also took Draupadi's side. Bhima, on the other hand, kill him. He killed 5 innocent boys while they're sleeping. He doesn't deserve to live. Bhima was adamant, seething with anger, eyes red. Kill him. Arjuna turned to Krishna, who was physically there, present before everybody's eyes. What do you think, Krishna? Krishna says, well, Draupadi says to not kill him, so you shouldn't kill him. And Sahadeva agrees with Draupadi that you shouldn't kill him. so you shouldn't kill him. But then Bhima says that you should kill him. And in fact, Manu Samhita says that an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Not only did he kill one, but he killed them not according to the rules of chivalry, not honorably, but he killed them while they were sleeping. So if anybody deserves to die, he deserves to die. But at the same time, the mother of the teenage boys whom he killed, she says to spare them, so you should spare them. And Arjuna's like, what is all this contradictory thing from Krishna? And then he realized that speaking in this hard to pin down way, speaking in the way that he did, speaking and telling Arjuna to do contradictory things, the message was, look within, Arjuna. Consult my super soul expansion within your heart. Deep internal consideration, contemplation. Arjuna looked within, and from within the heart, he got the answer that killing Ashwatthama, not killing him, any warrior, if he's dishonored, it's worse than death. Dishonor for a warrior is worse than death. So Arjuna cut off the top knot and the jewel that Ashwatthama kept wrapped in his hair on the top of his head, thus disgracing him, thus dishonoring him. Letting him live physically, but in fact, imposing upon him a punishment that for a warrior is worse than death. Killing and not killing. And this answer had been provided by Krishna, the all-knowing, all-powerful, supreme personality of Godhead, who exists within the heart of the living being. And now, Ambarish, if he doesn't break the fast, the whole vrata and everything, the giving of the cows, the fasting, the servants of the Lord, the temple worship, which was really all meant for the benefit of others. He was setting a sterling example as the king of the world. Everybody followed him and they were Krishna conscious. So there were a lot of negative consequences that could have come from his not completing the fast. People said, well, if Maharaj Ambarish doesn't complete his fast, if Maharaj Ambarish doesn't do everything nicely, then why should we do everything nice? If the great man, the leader, doesn't act properly, then how can the followers be expected to act properly? If Maharaj Ambarish did not break his fast or complete his fast at the right time, this would be a breach. It would negate or nullify all the other benefits that had accrued throughout this entire year. At the same time, if he broke his fast at the exact right moment, while Durvasa Muni was saying Gatra in the Yamuna, not having returned, then he would be guilty of not offering proper reception to a guest. When a guest comes, you have to feed the guest first. You cannot eat before your guest. How to solve this problem? Ambarish looked within. Krishna gave him the answer from within the heart. He said, when you sip a little water, it's breaking the fast and not breaking the fast. You don't have to take solid food, but you can fulfill all the conditions of the vow. You can complete the vow by just sipping a little water. At the same time, you will not be offending your guest because you have not taken any solid food before him. You're not supposed to eat before your guest, and you will not have eaten, at least not any solid food. Now, this is the solution, and it was. It was a solution. Everybody should have been happy. Now, this yogi, Ambarish, who knew things, he knew things by his yogic powers. He immediately detected that Maharaj Ambarish had drank water. And if he'd been a really high-class sort of a man, if he'd been a devotee, he would have appreciated how it was that Maharaj Ambarish solved the problem of breaking the fast and not breaking the fast. He would have glorified him. He would have been overwhelmed in ecstasy, but he was not a devotee, so he did not have perfect vision. The vision that he had sufficed to tell him what Maharaj had done, but the vision he had and the level of spiritual advancement to which he had risen did not empower him to recognize Maharaj as a great devotee of the Lord. In fact, he saw Ambarish as an ordinary person. Arche Vishnu Siddhir Gurushu Naramatir Vaishnava Jati Buddhi. One who sees the deity in the temple as stone or wood. One who sees the spiritual master as an ordinary man subject to the ordinary shortcomings and vicissitudes of life. Naraka Buddhi has a hellish mentality. In spite of being an expansion of Lord Shiva, in spite of being such an accomplished yogi that he went around without wearing clothes, that he was able to curse whole generations of offenders, he did not have even that level of spiritual advancement where he was able to recognize a great bhakta, a great devotee of the Lord. That's why Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam Visarvisham Maganam Yoginam Visarvisham Shraddha Bhajate Tema Yuktatam Mataham. The greatest yogi is not he who has mystic powers, who goes like a Naga Baba naked, who can point the finger at you and curse you, who knows things happening at distant places, who has that extra sensory perception. The greatest yogi is not he who has all of those powers, but he who is undeviatingly engaged in the service of Krishna. And one should never presume to minimize such a person, to make such a person over as an ordinary entity. Narasa Muni was not sufficiently spiritually advanced. He did not have the right kind of intuition to know that he should have never criticized Maharaj Ambarish. Not only was Maharaj Ambarish not guilty of having offended Durvasa Muni, but Durvasa Muni took what was really not an offense, which was really a brilliant resolution to a problem that he had. And he parlayed that. He imagined it to be a offense. He made a mountain out of a molehill. And as a consequence, he spoke all kinds of horrible words, called Ambarish all kinds of horrible names, and conjured up a fire weapon, directed it towards Maharaj Ambarish in order to kill him for that which was not even an offense. Now, we talked earlier about how Krishna had ordered his weapon, the razor sharp, blazingly bright Sudarshan chakra, as a personal weapon of the Lord. The Lord had ordered that weapon to stay in the palace of Ambarish, his devotee. The Lord considers the protection of his devotees a higher priority than his own protection. Sudarshan chakra did not have to come from a distant place, did not have to be invoked by the Lord. It was right there at hand. And it immediately reacted to destroy the fire weapon of Ambarish, and then began chasing Ambarish all over the universe. Being burned on the backside by the heat of the Sudarshan chakra, the razor sharp, intensely hot disc of the Lord spinning. It says that Durvasa Muni, being struck with fear and totally terrified, ran for his life throughout the entire universe, to the planet of Brahma, to the planet of Shiva, to the planet of Vishnu, eventually came back to Maharaj Ambarish. Now, here's a verse we find in the 9th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam regarding the role of Sudarshan chakra. Shvatejasya dharma mayena samritam tama prakashas tadvishto mahatam. When the Sudarshan chakra, the light of the Sudarshana chakra shines, everything becomes prakash. The men are separated from the boys. The real yogis are separated from the pseudo yogis. The offenders are separated from the genuine spiritualists. Although Durvasa Muni had a lot of credentials, he had a lot of respect from people in general. As soon as the light of the Sudarshan chakra appeared on the scene, it eclipsed whatever light Durvasa Muni, whatever potency Durvasa Muni had. It totally counteracted, negated. And that potency of Durvasa Muni with his little fire weapon was totally nullified by the unlimited brightness of the Sudarshana chakra. And the difference between Durvasa and Ambarish became crystal clear in the light of the Sudarshana chakra. In the evening, this is an example given by Lord Brahma. In the evening, in summer, we've all seen these little fireflies come out. Sometimes as kids, we used to catch them, keep them in a bottle, and get a kick out of putting them in the dark and seeing them light up. Lord Brahma says, my mystic power. People call me a yogi. They call me full of tejasa, full of shakti. Some people even call me God. But Lord Brahma says, my power to be able to create and maintain this one universe compared to the power of Krishna is like comparing the power of a glowworm, a firefly, to the power of the sun. The glowworm is visible only in dark. Only in the absence of the sun can you see the glowworms. They may be out during the day, but you don't know they're there. Only when the sun dips beyond the western horizon at the end of the day and the earth is cast in darkness, only then, in the absence of the sunlight, is the power of the fireflies visible. So Lord Brahma is feeling pretty good about himself most of the time. He's on the highest planet in this universe. He has his own planet. He has a lifespan, which is trillions and trillions of years. He is, in fact, the engineer. He's created all the bodies of 8,400,000 pieces of light. He's feeling pretty chuffed about himself most of the time. But when Lord Krishna descends, as he did 5,000 years ago, into the area of influence of Lord Brahma, and there's a display of Krishna's power as opposed to Lord Brahma's power, Brahma gets his comeuppance. His ego is deflated. And he concludes that my power is only prominent in the absence of Krishna's power, just like the power of the firefly is only visible in the absence of the sun. So in the same way, the fire weapon of Durvasa Muni seemed impressive only until the Sudarshan, the protective weapon of the Lord, appeared on the scene. And then the weapon of Durvasa was insignificant. It was immediately negated and destroyed. And similarly, Durvasa's power may have seemed intimidating and formidable only until such time as the power of the pure devotee became evident. Ambarish stood mildly and meekly. He watched the fire weapon come at him, was not in the slightest bit disturbed, thought that in fact he was an offender. He didn't see any fault in Durvasa. He thought that if Durvasa sees a fault in me, it must be true. I must be offender. I must be deserving of the fire which is coming to burn me. He did not lose his equanimity. He did not take any counteractive measures, but on his behalf, the Supreme Lord, who is Bhakta Vatsal, the protector of his devotees, released the Sudarsana chakra, invoked the Sudarsana chakra. And the Sudarsana chakra, the light of the Sudarsana chakra, eclipsed the light of Durvasa's fire weapons, just like the full bright light of the sun eclipses the power of the firefly. And that's the meaning of this verse we find in the 9th canto. Shvatejasha Dharma, the power of the Sudarsana chakra is such that things are separated out. The pretenders are shown for the hypocrites and impostures that they actually are. And most of those who claim to be yogas, who assert that they're practicing yoga after the ways of Lord Shiva and Durvasa Muni, are not in the final analysis really yogis. Krishna Bhakti Niskama Taiva Shankara Mukti Mukti Siddhi Sakali Shakali Ashanta. Only those who are engaged in the service of the Lord are meek and mild, have no greed, no ambitions. They're not envious of any other living being. They don't identify with the remote cause, the immediate cause, but they see that whatever happens to them is caused ultimately by the remote cause, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They're never retaliatory. They're never envious. In fact, if there's a challenge sent in their direction, If there's a threat, they take it, that it's only what they deserve, and on their own behalf, they do not protect themselves or counteract themselves. However, the Lord moves heaven and earth to come between such a devotee and their tormentor. It may be close. It may be close. It may be right down to the edge of the cliff, right to the 11th hour. But the Lord is there as a shield between his devotee and his tormentors. The fire weapon of Durvasa almost reached Ambarish. You might say it was singeing his eyebrows. He was feeling the heat. But then before the fire weapon reached him, in the split second, Sudarshan Chakra was there as a shield. We have window panes. We have window panes. And a bee might be flying towards you, might seem to be flying towards you. You're looking out the window, you're standing, you're an inch from the window, and a bee or a wasp might be flying towards you. And it looks like you're going to get stung by that bee. It looks like you're going to get stung by that wasp. But what the bee and the wasp don't see is that there's an invisible shield right in front of you. And when the wasp gets to that point where it almost seems like their mission is accomplished, they're so close, it seems almost inevitable that they're going to put their stinger into you and inflict hurt, inflict pain on you. They hit that invisible shield and they bounce off. They don't even know what happened to them. It's a mystery to them. So however close Durvasa Muni's fire weapon got to burning Ambarish Maharaj, Krishna is always there as an invisible shield between the devotees and their tormentors. Tama Prakasha Tradishto Mahatavam, because Durvasa Muni was, Ambarish was actually, he was the actual yogi. Yoginam Visarvasham, Krishna says in the last verse of the 6th chapter. Of all yogis, Yoginam api sarvisham, madgate nantaram. He was devoted to me, he for whom I am the ultimate goal and purpose of his life, Shraddhaya bhajate umam, and who worships me with all of his heart, Teme yuktitamo mata, is, in my opinion, the highest of all yogis. That hardly described Durvasa Muni. Hardly described Durvasa. Big ego, envious of others, critical, fault-finding, looking for the shortcomings in others, always with a critical eye. Durajasti mahi girampate tradrubamesha shadashatpavartanam. Here is the translation of the verse. O Master, by your effulgence, full of religious principles. Now this is a prayer which is addressed to the Sudarsana chakra itself. By your effulgence, which is representative of religious principles, by the effulgence of the Sudarsana chakra, the darkness of this world is dissipated. When the sun of Krishna's chakra arises, the darkness of ignorance and envy is destroyed. When the Sudarsana chakra appeared, the fire weapon, not only the fire weapon of Durvasa, but he who conjured it up, Durvasa himself, was in deep trouble. The verse goes on to say, and the knowledge of learned persons or great souls is manifested along with the power of the Sudarsana chakra. Indeed, no one can surpass your effulgence, for all things manifest and unmanifested, gross and subtle, superior and inferior, are but various forms of you that are manifested by your effulgence. Whatever is good, whatever is righteous, whatever is truthful is part and parcel of the Sudarsana chakra. And we all know that without the sun in the sky, without illumination, without electricity, without lamps and lights, nothing can be seen in this material world. All vision, all sight, all discernment in this material world hinges upon the sun and moon in the sky, and by extension, the electricity, which harnesses the energy of the sun and the moon and allows us vision after the sun and the moon disappear from the horizon. Now, all that illumination, all that effulgence has as its origin the Sudarsana chakra. The Sudarsana chakra is the original vision, is the original glance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So whatever illuminatory powers there are in the sun and the moon, the stars and fire and electricity, they originate in the Sudarsana chakra. And whatever illumination there is in terms of transcendental knowledge also arises from the illumination of the Sudarsana chakra. It is due to the presence of the Sudarsana chakra that we're able to discern one thing from another, to distinguish one object from another, to tell the difference between that was superior and that was inferior. And so as soon as, before the Sudarsana chakra came, we might have thought, oh, Devasi's very powerful. Devasi's the cat's meow, or Devasi's a big deal. But once the Sudarsana chakra came, then we see things for how they are. There was a few decades ago, he passed away probably 20 years or so ago, there was a so-called yogi in India. He had many followers. He was able to produce from thin air, ashes, a little bit of gold. He would sometimes give people fruits, and people would take the fruits, and as they were a few miles away, driving or walking away, there would appear an Om symbol on the fruit. And because of these yogic powers, this man was called by hundreds of thousands of disciples as God, as God. He did not, in all fairness, call himself God, but he allowed all of his followers to call him as God and worship him as God. And then in his later years, some accusations came up of child abuse and child molestations. Our appeal is, don't accept some cheap God. There are many pretenders, there are many so-called gods and so-called gurus, and that's why Krishna comes. It's why Krishna came 5,000 years ago, to put an end to such speculation. The tendency amongst ignorant people in general is that if someone has a little bit of yogic power, they can conjure up some ash or conjure up some gold, or they can make a Om appear in a banana, then people foolishly and cheaply accept that person as God, who in himself later on becomes accused of child molestation. Our appeal, Krishna's appeal, is don't set yourself up for being cheated in that way. Don't accept God cheaply. Just because someone does some cheap tricks doesn't mean they're God. If producing a little bit of gold were to qualify for a God, then any jeweler, any mercantilistic, penny pinching, money grubbing jeweler anywhere in the world would be God, because they produce so much gold, so much jewels. You know, if all it took was to produce a little ash to become God, all you have to do is burn a little incense cake and put some powder on it, and voila, presto changeo, you become God. So not only is God not so cheap, but his devotees are not cheap either. God is Param Brahma, Param Dham, Povitam, Param Purusham, Sasaram, Adi Deva Jambram. He is that person who existed before the sun, the moon, the stars, Shiva, Brahma, Vishnu, Ganesh. He is a supreme abode, Param Brahma, Param Dhama, the supreme rest, the supreme purifier. When you come to the end of your rope, when you don't see a way, you look within, you consult that all-powerful Lord who's within your heart to get the answer, because he is Vedaham Samatitani Vartamanani. He sees everything, past, present, and future. Durvasa, taking bath in the Yamuna, sipping water and doing his gatri, learned that Marja Ambarish had taken a little bit of water. That was the effect of his yogic powers. He could understand something that was happening, one thing that was happening beyond his range of vision if he focused on that particular person. Krishna, without any effort, understands everything that's happening with every living being in every species of life, on every planet, in every universe, in the material and the spiritual worlds. He understands everything through his Paramatma or Vishnu incarnation. You know, if you come to a dead end, you come to a dark place, you don't know whether to go left or right, you're placed on the horns of a dilemma, damned if you do, damned if you don't. Devotees characteristically, instead of breaking open the rocks, instead of getting frustrated and agitated, having a meltdown, devotees just close their eyes and they go with it. Lord, what's the answer? What do you want me to do, Lord? The Lord gives them the answer, like he did with Arjuna at Kurukshetra, like he did with Arjuna in the question of what to do with Ashvatthama, and like he did with Maharaj Ambarish here, where he gave him the secret how to fast and not fast. And then when that was misinterpreted by an envious pseudo-yogi, Krishna brought the full power, the full clarity, the full force, the full brightness of his own personal weapon to eclipse the power of Durvasa Muni and show what is superior, what is inferior, what is real, what is false, what is authentic, and what is counterfeit. That's our lesson for today. Thanks very much for joining in with us. So the many days now, we've dwelled on the glories of the devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Ambarish, and his relationship with his tormentor, Durvasa Muni. Eventually became good friends. We'll get to that. Eventually they became very, very good friends. What are our comments today? Maya is the wasp, your faith is the shield. Very good. I like that. Chris is coming up with some of the, I don't know what Rob didn't jump on today, but Chris is kind of filling in the role of giving us some pithy little takeaways. He says, Maya is the wasp, your faith is the shield, or Krishna is the shield. Govinda Dev, thank you very much for coming on board. Govinda Dev had a birthday last Saturday. Everybody wishes him well and many more years of engaging in devotional service in the Salt Lake area. He's one of our jewels. Bye, Bobby, having done Mangalarti, she usually listens in on the class. Bhakti Gary from Northern California, thank you. Shukshma says, I like the breakdown of the Muni's name, Durvasa. She also says the Durvasa story never gets old. Apparently not, because we revisited, like officially, I think 13 times, but actually, I think we had 10 sessions before we even started counting in this way. Terry, I don't really never learned how to pronounce your last name. B-I-E-G-R, Beger. Anyway, haven't seen you for a while, Terry. Thanks for jumping on. She says, Hare Krishna, everybody. John Malik's there. Brent Spencer, Hari Bo, and Jean, the first one to have jumped on 45 minutes ago at 7:30. Thank you all, and we'll be back tomorrow with more of the glories of Ambarish Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.